On this week's episode, we're going to look at everything the stewards couldn't be bothered with, look at Ferrari's return to form, and of course, assess Bearman's excellent result. Hello and welcome to another episode of Back of the Grid. I'm your host Tom, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris.
Hello.
Who is not having to do a solo episode this week. So there is two of us this time. I mean, at least I came back for a good one, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
There was a lot going on this weekend.
It's weird, like traditionally Mexico has been not one of the best races on the calendar, and we've tended to not get that much overtaking, I feel, in recent years. And then this year we've had a season of overtaking being difficult, and we get to Mexico and like all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. How much of that do you think's factored in by like what's going on with the championship though?
Yeah, possibly. It's definitely looking a lot closer this year at this point, so I guess everyone's fighting that bit harder.
Yeah, I think as well. I guess when the cars are so close aerodynamically as it is anyway, and they're getting closer, like as the season's gone on with upgrades, I suppose the reduced airflow from the altitude just brings them even closer together.
Yeah.
Still, like there was a point in qualifying where there were like 8-9 cars within a tenth or so of each other. Like it was crazy.
I think in Q1 at one point the whole field was less than the second, which is wild.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it definitely always helps when it's a shorter lap like this one. It's one of the shorter laps, isn't it? Other than things like Monaco. So it's one of the shorter ones, I think, 4 kilometers or something.
Which always feels weird to me. Miles. Like it looks like a long track, but somehow it's one of the shortest. It's really weird.
Yeah. A really long, fast straight, and then some slow, clumsy corners at the end.
Yeah, so basically.
It ends up being like a weird balance of like super speed and super slow. But yeah, I mean, overall, like we say, very entertaining weekend. It's meant a lot for obviously the championship battle. It's meant, I mean, that top end and down towards the bottom with some of the results for midfield teams, etc. It's definitely mixing up the running order, so to speak, making these last 4 races that we're going into a little bit more unpredictable and a little bit harder to work out who's going to do well where. But I suppose we're going to have to start somewhere and start breaking down what happened this weekend. So I'm going to let you take the lead there and you go wherever you want to go with this now.
Yeah, I think we'll do things a bit differently this week, and there's lots of incidents to talk about. So I think we'll just go incident by incident rather than like team by team.
I love how it's going to be an incident roundup rather than like a team by team roundup like it normally would be.
Okay. That kind of race. We'll start with a dip into the inbox actually, because David wrote in, which kind of tees us off nicely for the first bit. David says hello from southern Germany. How do you guys rate Leclerc's lap 1? He's behind Lewis going out of turn 1, then cuts across going in front, only to let them by, except Lewis. I was personally salty because I wanted to see Hamilton on the podium this year, but I still can't see why it wasn't at least investigated. I know it's only lap 1 and they sometimes let stuff fly, but this one still bothers me. And David is correct there. If you watch it back, at the point Leclerc dives across the grass, he is behind Hamilton. Rejoins in the lead by about 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah,
and then
feels like it, doesn't it?
And then only slowed up to give Norris the place back. And if this was 2 different teams, I think Hamilton's team would have been screaming at the stewards to do something about it. But because it was teammates, they kind of left it to the stewards, who just decided to ignore it, basically.
Yeah, not best pleased with this one.
No.
Generally speaking, I think far too much attention was being thrown Max's way in that scenario, and everyone became hyper-focused around what was going on with him, and Leclerc sort of just flew under the radar, almost literally,
Yeah.
and kind of got away with it because of what went on initially with Max at the start of turn one, like at the entry breaking point to turn one, and then obviously what then went on in following laps. Like there were point. I don't know. I don't know how they've blatantly missed this. I don't buy this whole we didn't have the footage, blah blah blah, because there were plenty of people who saw it live and went, "What are they going to do about this?"
The footage existed because we all watched it.
Yeah, I mean, probably doesn't help, like you say, and like what David I think mentioned in the question. It probably doesn't help that Ferrari will have done nothing to draw it to the steward's attention because it's their other driver.
Exactly.
Like, had Lewis still been in the Mercedes, for argument's sake, Bono would have been straight on, and they would have been straight on saying, "Can somebody look at this? Leclerc's, keeping a position he shouldn't have kept." But yeah, I think I'm very, very surprised he's not ended up with a penalty there, and it's poor stewarding in my opinion, because he didn't even have any need to bail out of the corner that he bailed out of. There was just no need for it.
It's not like he was getting pushed off, was it?
No, he had plenty of room. He had like the world's. I feel like he had the world's tiniest little lockup. I mean, we'll get to tiny lockups and bailing out again in a second, but like, it just felt. It felt like they ignored it because Ferrari didn't obviously want to protest it themselves, which they're not going to. Ferrari are looking at it as our cars are still second and third, which is where they would be no matter which way around they are. And it just smacked a little bit of Ferrari saying, well, we think Leclerc's the better option today, so we're going to keep him in front.
Yeah.
Which is a bit unfair.
I'm looking at the replay now. At the point Leclerc goes off the track, Hamilton's leaving him a full car's width, expecting Leclerc to be there.
Yeah. So in preparation for knowing we were going to talk immensely about turn one, lap one, I basically watched the onboards of Hamilton, Leclerc, and Verstappen. And I rewatched a little bit of Russell's as well. From like that down into turns 4 and 5, whatever it is, like the next little complex of corners. And at no point can I see a reason that Leclerc needs to bail out of the corner because, well, I mean, other than the fact that he wants to get ahead of Hamilton, like because he knows that if he has to have that tight inside line, Hamilton is probably going to go around the outside of him. But unfortunately, that's where he's put himself. Like that's the situation he's found himself in. Now, I think going like way back, Hamilton definitely quite aggressively moved him across to that outside of turn one, like in the lead up to the corner down the straight. But in the same mind, he's looking at where Norris is, hugging that inside and trying to think, well, I want to be in the middle of this, essentially. Like that's where I want to be, and he's trying to make sure that he's got space. And obviously, this will catalyst onto the other events we'll talk about. But again, I don't think that element of it is any reason to say that Hamilton deserves to have had Leclerc dive across the grass like that and only give Lando a place back, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also had Max involved. So slightly different with Max. He was on the outside, basically level with the two Ferraris on the way into the braking zone. But in order to do that, he'd had to go kind of onto the curb, and he was kicking up a load of dust in the process.
Yeah, so that's the catalyst I was talking about. Like you've got Hamilton moving across to try and nip out from behind Norris so that he can get alongside him, which has then in turn moved Leclerc across.
Yeah.
And obviously at this point, Hamilton can't see through Leclerc. Like he's got no idea that Max is as far alongside Leclerc as he is, and that he is like technically pushing Hamilton onto that curb. Hamilton is pushing Verstappen onto that curb. But I don't think again that element of it is all just very generic turn one, lap one, race start kind of behaviour where people are jostling to get track position, and unfortunately you can't see through cars and you can't tell that you're attempting to go 4 wide instead of what you think is 3 wide.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, at the point Leclerc makes that decision, Verstappen's already long gone. he's off on the grass somewhere. And as I say, Hamilton's left in the space. Yeah, very odd one, I think. Very strange choice to not, at the very least, ask Leclerc to give a position back, or if not, penalise him for that. Max, I mean, him going off was just a case of he couldn't get the car slowed in time because he went off onto the dirty stuff. That's fair enough.
I mean, it was essentially sliding down the curb at one point.
Yeah.
He had like no contact with the wheels to be able to stop the car. I think there's a little bit, if you watch his onboard, where he is that sort of teetered on and just sliding along the curb, that I think his front left is like up off the ground and just completely stopped because he's got the brakes on, and the front left just stops because it's not on the ground anymore. So there's no friction against it, so the brakes just stop it, and that which shows like how lifted he was and how kind of quote unquote out of control the car was, I guess. And to be honest, he did well to regain control of it and not end up in those barriers.
He was very close to the barriers. So when he rejoined in third between Norris and Hamilton, and then Hamilton passed him through the next sequence of corners. Given that at the point they went into the corner, Hamilton, Leclerc, and Verstappen were basically level.
Yeah.
So for him to go off and rejoin ahead of Hamilton, who's the only one of the three of them who did the corner properly, he probably should have given the place back to Hamilton. As it was, Hamilton ended up ahead, I think, anyway. So
I think that's probably about right, though. Like, I mean, at the time, it was hard to see exactly where Hamilton had gone back past Verstappen because everything was happening so quickly and there was so much going on. But I remember saying at the time, I said, well, like, what's Leclerc doing? And, like, why is everybody... I can already see, like, everyone's being up in arms about Max, but, like, I was saying at the time, like, Max has, quote-unquote, given the place back. Like, Max has slotted back in where he should be. Now, whether he's intentionally given that place to Hamilton or it's just that, like, the lack of momentum from coming off of the grass in turn 3 has allowed Hamilton to get that run on him into turn 4 and just naturally take the position. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's worked out the way you would say it should, which is Verstappen slotted back in fourth, which is about right, I think. And he didn't have any complaint about, like, well, not that I heard, he didn't have any complaints about, oh, Hamilton's overtaken me and I was ahead of him and he needs to give it me back. Well, but, like, there was no complaint the other way. So I think that just fixed itself naturally.
Yeah. Watching it back, I don't think he didn't deliberately give the place back. I think Hamilton took advantage of Leclerc slowing to let Norris back through.
Yeah.
Yeah. To let...
it was Leclerc slowing to let Norris through that sort of... It happened directly in front of him going into that corner. And I think Max sort of jinked to the outside to avoid them two, like, squabbling over fixing the places slowly, essentially. And Max moved to the outside, which kind of gave Hamilton the inside line for turn 4.
Yeah, basically. So it's definitely an active overtake, not Max giving the place back. But as you say, ultimately, it's
shook out. He's not fought it, has he?
Yeah.
He's not aggressively fought it or anything, and probably realising that if he had kept the place, he's probably going to get asked to give it back anyway. And I think that's why he's not fought it. And that bit of it all works out relatively fairly.
It shook out in the order they should have been in.
What Russell's complaints were, I have no idea, because Verstappen was so far ahead of Russell at the point that they were going into that braking zone and had plenty of right to space in turn 1. I've got no idea what Russell's complaints were.
Yeah, Russell trying to jump on the I should be given a place as well bandwagon. And he just wasn't in that fight at all.
No, he had such a bad start in reality when you look at it. You think about it. Like, the Ferraris disappeared. Max came past him and joined the Ferraris. Like, and Russell's just like, yeah, guys, I want some places back. Like, what?
Like, he went into turn 1 on the opposite side of the track to Verstappen and a full car length behind.
Yeah. So... Yeah. Craziness.
Russell was just angry the entire race, though. Something had upset him, and he was just salty about everything.
Well, probably that start.
That way, yeah.
And then that's it. He was
off.
done for the race at that point.
Right, we'll move forward to lap 6 now, which is when Verstappen tried to pass Hamilton up the inside into turn 1. They sort of had a bit of contact on the exit of turn 1, and then through turn 3, they came close again, and Verstappen ended up cutting turn 3 entirely and sort of took the place that way. Then he carried on into turn 4, which is when Russell got involved as well. And Hamilton basically ends up going off, cuts across the grass and rejoins ahead. The initial pass that Verstappen put on Hamilton, or attempt at turn 1, it's another one of those by the letter of the rules. It was fine. Like he was ahead at the apex, and therefore he is allowed to just run to the outside of the corner, regardless of whether there's a car on his outside or not. I hate it. I hate that that's the racing rules, and that is okay. But by the rules, that he was okay to do that. And the wild thing is that Hamilton was investigated for causing a collision at turn 1, not Verstappen. For
causing a collision?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was investigated for... Wait, hang on. I thought he was investigated
Hamilton,
for what happened at turn 4 after all.
Hamilton was actually... I only realised this earlier on when I was looking for the stewards' notes. Hamilton was investigated for 3 different things on lap 4. Okay. The other 2 we'll get to, but one of the 3 was causing a collision at turn 1. And basically the investigation was that the 2 of them made contact, and because Verstappen was ahead at the apex, was it Hamilton's fault there was collision because Verstappen had right to the corner. They didn't do anything about it, but even so, like, that shows how bizarre the rules are, that of the 2, it was Hamilton they looked at there, not Verstappen. Then going forward to turn 4, he was investigated for failing to follow the race director's instructions because he went on the grass rather than that little escape road. They gave nothing for that,
which is fair because he's not
under the circumstances
gained anything by not doing it. To be fair,
and then the third thing was leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage, for which he was given that 10-second penalty. Yeah,
which I think arguably that bit of it is relatively fair because I don't think he needed to bail on the kind of like the Leclerc situation. What I don't like here is that you've got Leclerc going, nah, I don't fancy that. I'm going to go this way and not getting a penalty. And then you've got Hamilton, in my opinion, doing exactly the same thing and getting a 10-second penalty. Now, for me, this is like the prime hypocrisy of one rule for one and one rule for another and policing the outcomes and all that BS without saying anything too more strong than that. So this comes back to policing the outcomes for me because Hamilton's done that and gained/kept positions. Therefore, we're going to penalise him. Leclerc's done that, given Norris the position back, and then the teammates let them work it out for themselves, will not bother doing anything to Leclerc. But for me, those 2 incidents are basically the same thing. And I'm not a fan of them being outcomed differently. So I don't have a problem with Hamilton getting a penalty, but Leclerc did exactly the same thing and should have also had a penalty for doing exactly the same thing, in my opinion.
I mean, it was complicated by the fact that in all of that, Verstappen also lost a position to Bearman.
Mm-hmm.
I still think if I were Ferrari, I probably would have said to Hamilton, let's just give the place back because you have, as you say, gained/kept it by cutting a corner.
Yeah.
But then I'm not... For me, the way Verstappen passed Hamilton in the first place was like, okay, yes, the turn 1 thing was within the rules, but then he cut turn 3 to actually make the pass. Like, did he need to be cutting the corner there? Like,
yeah, I mean, that bit of it, I think you got like I mean, this is what happens when you get, for whatever reason, those 2 on track fighting for a position with each other. Verstappen resorts to the very extreme presentation of the rules in terms of the way he's going to do things. Like, technically speaking, by the letter of the rules, he is allowed space, and it is a Max Verstappen classic to let the brakes go earlier than maybe he should, go into an apex far too fast for what he should, knowing that it would cause him to run wide on the corner, but it gets him a long slide / ahead of where he needs to be at the apex, therefore winning the corner, quote unquote, by the FIA rules. I think then what you've got on the other side of it is Hamilton in turn 2 essentially saying, well, if we're going to play like that, then you know you're not getting any room on the exit of this corner. So Verstappen goes, okay, then I'm going to go over here if you're not going to give me any room. And it just becomes like both as bad as each other again at that point.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, like, I'm not necessarily saying Max is right for cutting the corner, but when Hamilton's going to get his elbows out and say, okay, if you're going to fight me the old way, I'm not going to give you any room in turn 2 and push you out towards the grass, then we all know what's going to happen. And I think that's probably why that then gets left, because of the way Hamilton then just like blatantly just gives up on the... Like, don't get me wrong, he has a tiny lockup, but it's the smallest of lockups. And just kind of... It cuts so much of the corner. It's not even like I'm struggling to make this. I'm gonna like cut turn 5 short or something. It's there's literally a moment where you just go nope, and he just straightens up and he just go, I'm not bothering with this, which is a little bit different to if you compare the two scenarios. Max is at least trying to make turn 3 and not giving the room, and therefore bails on it, which is I think is a different scenario. But that's just me.
That's the thing. Like, Hamilton wasn't just like cutting one corner; he was cutting like 3.
Yeah,
which is kind of hilarious.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, it's 4, 5, and then ultimately he was coming out at like the apex of 6, wasn't he? He was halfway around 6 technically. And when you look at like, I don't know, someone like Bearman's cleaned up 2 places there from sitting behind all that and watching it unfold. Technically speaking, he should probably add 3. Mm-hmm. Like he should have probably had Hamilton's place as well. But he legit, like, you can't say that there wasn't room on track for them to be doing what they were doing, because look what happened. Like, Russell tried to be clever and hang it around the outside of Verstappen. Didn't work. Bearman did the cleverer thing and sat back and went, I'm just going to watch this unfold and see if I can get a jump on someone, and found his gap and went for it. And was, because he was driving sensibly, was able to get on the power much earlier than anyone else and take the gap. Like, Hamilton, retrospectively, should have probably done what Bearman did in the sense of bailing out of the corner, is brake early, let Verstappen kind of dive into that corner again, making a similar mistake, run wide, and then take advantage of that and get the run on him. Like, that's the... And I know it's all very different in the heat of the moment with the adrenaline, and they've already gone wheel to wheel. Like, yes, it's very easy for me to sit there and go, this is what he should have done. But these are the world's best drivers and supposed to be the best at what they do. And kind of when you sat there thinking, well, we can see it unfolding like that, and we can see the better options there. The professional, you would expect to be able to see the better option in the moment, or at least have the sense of, this is better for my result if I play it cool here. I don't know.
And on top of that, you've also got just stewards sort of seeming to look at some things and ignore other things, and it's all a bit frustrating.
Maybe that's the whole ploy, is the drivers have just got some unwritten agreement between each other that let's just go like crazy, cause as much chaos as possible. They can only look at so much of it. Let's just see who, if you get caught unlucky.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, like, it was such an exciting race in that kind of everyone behind Norris, basically, for the podium positions, was looking so exciting. And it still was exciting, but it was a shame that Hamilton got kind of removed from that fight through a penalty. Which...
Yeah, and it's weird that he was the only one. Like I say, I think I'm again not saying that he shouldn't have had one, but I think that definitely him and Leclerc should have been treated similarly. And there's probably an argument to say that like you would treat the Max situation differently when he's thrown the car up the inside, and even if that's by the letter of the rules, gone and cut the grass in turn 3. I think that's kind of gone under the radar again. Kind of like the Leclerc thing. The Leclerc thing's got missed and gone under the radar because there was something else bigger that they were trying to focus on for whatever reason at the time. And then I think that the Verstappen completely cut in turn 3 when Hamilton's giving him the elbows back has probably again gone under the radar because of what Hamilton then proceeded to do at turn 4. And it's just like, it's just like, we can only deal with one thing at a time.
Well, there's a point where there's all this stuff had been going on, and it's like, the pursuit's going to be busy here. And all of a sudden it comes up, Carlos Sainz under investigation for pit lane speeding. It's like, hang on, do you not have a few more important things to be looking at here?
The beauty of that was it was Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, turn 1, leaving the track and giving an advantage, blah, 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 whatever it was. No further action. It's like, who cares about them leaving the track and getting an advantage? We're not here. We're not interested in that. What's going on with Max and what's going on with Charles Leclerc? Crazy.
Yeah, very odd.
And then randomly, like 20 laps later, they picked up, I can't remember what it was, they picked up an incident like 20 laps in and just went, this has now been investigated. And I was like, why is it taking them 20 laps to decide, we're going to look at that?
What were they doing?
The situation has already unfolded. Like, there's no point at that point.
Yeah, very annoying.
Yeah.
We should mention Lando Norris, though. I mean, he won, and I mean, what a win! Like that was, that was like among the most dominant wins you've ever seen from him. I think, like, that was up there with like early season McLaren dominance.
I think overall, it probably one of the better, if not the best, weekends he's had.
I think so. Yeah.
Like when you look at where he was in qualifying and what he was doing in qualifying, one of those laps that he set where he was multiple tenths up on people, was on used tyres compared to other people doing them on new tyres. You've then got the gap he gave himself in Q3 to put it on pole in the first place and just made himself untouchable there.
Yeah.
And then relatively stayed out of all that trouble, like quelled the demons of the bad starts that he's had in the past. And other than Leclerc deciding to cut corners to get ahead of him and ultimately giving it back, once that was settled, he just kind of disappeared off and let the rest squabble behind him. It was very akin to Max performances that you see when Max just turns up to a weekend and you just know from like the get-go pretty much this is Max's weekend to lose now. It felt very much like Lando was having one of those weekends. I guess the important question for him now is going to be, can he continue having weekends like that in these last 4 races or so that we've got and actually sort of maintain his championship lead now that he's actually finally got it back. Like, when they kept going on about it on coverage, like sometime in April that he last had the championship lead.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, I think, was the last time he had it.
That's like, if you can now maintain, if you can maintain the form he was in this weekend, it's hard to look past him, isn't it? Especially when you compare it to the form Piastri's had recently.
Yeah, it's such a... Yeah, like as a swing in form is so interesting. Yeah, and I mean, Piastri, just another really tough weekend. Like, I look back over his qualifying earlier. First 16 races of the season, he was only outside the top 3 on the grid once in Miami. Every other race of the first 16, he was in the top 3. The last 4 races since then, he's been 9th, 3rd, 6th, and 8th on the grid. Like, his qualifying form is just gone. And like he's said in interviews that like he's having to, something's changed and he's having to drive the car in a different way and he's not getting to grips with it, which is, it's odd because they've stopped development on that car. It's not like they're not been changing much,
have they? No, it's not like they've brought an upgrade package that's not worked for it. Or when did his downturn start? Probably Baku, wasn't it? They've not really introduced anything since Baku. I think the last upgrade they put on, like a formal upgrade, was Monza, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
And he's had more than good form since Monza. It's more probably since Baku that he's had
Yeah.
the issues. But yeah, it's
And I
it's
mean,
it's definitely playing into Norris's favour at the minute, anyway.
yeah. I mean, he had a good race. Like, he recovered well to
Yeah,
come home like fifth in the end, wasn't it?
yeah.
But like, he's in the same car as Norris, who's just won the Grand Prix by 30 seconds. Like, he needs to not be putting himself in a position where he needs to be making a recovery like that.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's so strange just how off a cliff his form has has dropped.
Do you know one thing I did realise just then is I said they brought an upgrade to Monza and then his bad form started in Baku. Those were the races that followed each other, weren't they, to be fair? So
Yeah,
maybe there is something in the upgrade that over time is not suiting the way he drives or the way he likes to set up the car. I mean, I've seen a lot of talk around the paddock of him struggling with like maybe how loose the back end's got and having to dial back the setup a little bit to take that out of the car, and then ultimately that causing a bitier front end that uses up the tires more, which means you ultimately then have to drive more carefully to save the tire. And maybe it's like a cascading effect that something that they did change in Monza as part of that upgrade has lightened the rear end up a little bit for him, and it's just not suiting that style. And to be fair, knowing what I've seen of Norris over the years, that probably does lean a little bit more into his favour, even though it's taken a while for him to start finding the form in it. It's, it does lean a little bit more in his favour if the car is setting up like that, I guess, and it's not something Oscar likes. But I mean, I'm just regurgitating random speculation from pundits around the paddock at that point. Like, there's nothing factual in that, I don't think.
Also, in sort of championship contender territory, that third place for Max means he's closed his gap to Piastri now in second.
Yeah.
But obviously Norris has extended the gap to him.
Although technically he's still closer to first place. Yeah. So he's now 36 points away from first place. So although Norris has got further away from Max than he was, Max is now closer to first place than he was. So, like, analytically.
Yeah. I mean, sort of weird corner cutting and stuff aside, like, he had a good race. His second stint on those softs was really impressive. Like,
good stint, yeah.
Dropping that gap down to Leclerc at the end was very impressive.
Yeah, and there's a very good chance he'd have possibly had that if it weren't for the VCS. So
yeah, VCS, it's disappointing. It's disappointing because, like, I wasn't certain because, like, he'd used a lot of his tires to bring that gap down, and once he got within like a second and a half, he seemed to be struggling to bring it under a second. But like, he did get there.
He was under a second, and he was going to get DRS. I mean, it'd have been a last ditch move, but
yeah. But yes, we were robbed of it.
We were robbed slightly, definitely.
Yeah, by that VSC. Which this might be a controversial opinion. It sucks that we got that VSC. It robbed us of 2 or 3 fights on the last lap. But it was right. It should have been a VSC.
Yeah, and this is the thing, isn't it? Like, when you look back and you see what was happening, you can understand why it was called. And I guess most people have seen it by now, but if you haven't, essentially, when Carlos pulled up where he did, although he'd managed to get his car relatively out of the way and into a generally safe position, there was what looked like a small engine fire. There's a lot of smoke coming from the car, which I think there's like a few like press pictures from people that you can actually see that now. And that essentially means that, marshals are going to have to immediately attend to try and put out a potential fire before it escalates. And especially when it's under the grandstands and things like that, like, there's a lot of factors at play there. And ultimately, the reason the VSC was called is correct. And I don't think there's anyone that would realistically argue with that. And yes, it's a shame it neutralised what was about to be Max fighting Leclerc whilst Piastri is simultaneously fighting Bearman into the final edition of Turn 1. But the safety rules are there for a reason, and you can understand why it was called. It was just a shame that wasn't made clearer at the time, so that the commentary teams could understand the situation for themselves. Because the commentary teams were as confused as anybody else, saying, we can't see a reason that there should be a virtual safety car here. Like, he's out of the way. It seems strange. And, like, it feels like there needs to be a little bit of access for those commentary teams as to maybe what the FIA are up to in the stewards room and stuff like that, and the race control room of, you know, if they're saying, like, even if it's just like somebody in the commentary booth that can hear the race control feed or something like that, and can then just give them a nudge with a note that says Sainz's car is potentially on fire, and then they can say something about it. But yeah,
or as Paul just said in the chat, perhaps just show it on TV.
Yeah, I get that. I do get that bit. The only slight defense I'll give them there is that probably because of where he did go put the car under that grandstand round the back, like, there's probably not a good position TV camera to actually be able to properly capture it. Would be my guess.
Yeah, possibly.
It's probably hard to stick a camera at it that gives you the shot that you need. But yeah, it just seems like it could have been so much easier, like, notified and solved to everyone what was going on.
Yeah. They did miss a lot on TV this weekend, though. Like,
well,
yes, like Hakota, we had far less shots of the crowd and of random people in the garage. Like, in that respect, much improved.
Better. Yeah.
But they did miss a lot of... So there was one point where we had 2 different tiny boxes of action going on the side of the screen while they were showing something, like, not that interesting on the main feed, which is ridiculous. But
yeah, and showing the actual interesting thing in the tiny box whilst trying to show a replay on the main screen. It's like, just end the replay, man, and go to the live footage. We can come back to a replay. That's the point of a replay. And random one just to throw in there. But at one point, was George Russell not labelled as Lance Stroll on the little, when they try and put the little driver tags?
I didn't see that.
I'm sure when they try and put the driver tags over the top of the cars to, like, show who's who from the aerial, it popped up saying Lance Stroll. I was like, what's Lance Stroll doing there? And then it sort of disappeared and came back up as Russell. I was like, that makes more sense. So, yeah.
Going back to Ferrari briefly, Leclerc, we mentioned, finished second. Like, for a second week in a row, it was basically like they executed their race pretty much perfectly, I think. Like, yes, he kind of ended up in second when he probably shouldn't have been, but once he was there, they did everything right, like, strategically, pit stops.
I think splitting the Ferraris the way they did, like getting Hamilton to mimic the third stop with everybody else in order to maintain that pace, and leaving Leclerc out. I mean, we'll never know 100% for sure if it was the correct call, because we got robbed of that, like, last lap or so.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was probably better in the long run, I think, to do what they did. But yeah, it worked. The result worked, even if he should have had a 10-second penalty and been further down the road than what he was.
And then Hamilton, it's disappointing, man. Like, this is one, he's looked so good all weekend. Like, I really thought this was going to be where he was going to pick up that elusive first podium. And then, like, robbed of it because of that penalty. And it's frustrating because the penalty came about as a result of him being the second Ferrari in the chain, and he shouldn't have been. Like, he should have... He should have been second on the road in lap one. I also think Leclerc didn't particularly play the team game on the run to turn one as well. Like, Hamilton was the one with the slipstream looking the fastest.
Yeah,
and Leclerc
was
boxed him in behind
him. Yeah, that is true.
Which is, not the most team player kind of move there, but I guess he's not there to help his teammate.
Yeah. But yeah, enough for them to be second in the standings now, though, and jump Mercedes by a single point, I want to say it is.
It's something tiny like that, They're just flip-flopping constantly, those two teams.
It is literally a single point.
Yeah, a single point.
356 for Ferrari, 355 for Mercedes.
Yeah, that's another one going right down to Abu Dhabi, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which brings us on to a fourth place for Mr. Ollie Bearman. His best ever F1 finish and equals Haas's best ever finish as well. The Haas still yet to have a podium. And he was great all weekend. Like, that's three races in a row now. He's been in Q3. As you said earlier, he kind of played it smart when there was that squabble going on early on and sort of made the most of it. And then he was like racing with faster cars and holding up faster cars and doing just a really good job of it. Like, really, really impressive drive from him, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, no real complaints at all, I don't think. Very, very, very solid drive. Well earned. He's shown, obviously, in the little bits of standing work that he did last season, that he had some good potential in the Ferrari and even in the Haas. Maybe a little bit of a slower start to the season than he'd have liked, but ultimately, like this back end of the season is definitely showing that he's found his form now and he's found his way within that team and within that car, and he's able to get the results out of it. And I think we talked about him at the mid-season review of being like agonizingly consistent, like where while that car, he was consistently bringing it in like 11th place, and it was like he just needs that little break. And I'm not sure where they brought the update. I don't know if it is this weekend or not, but like those last few races at least have shown that despite the massive like highs and lows you'd got of Ocon of like great points back of the pack, like Ollie was literally consistently 11th, 12th, and that's kind of where it was. And then since they've had the updates over the last few races, he's had the 2 9th places, and then obviously this weekend. I think that there's potentially a good run for him to have going over these last 4 races, just to keep scoring points, hopefully.
Yeah, he's got some really good form at the moment. One question mark is him making the second stop. He was running third and made a second stop. Part of me almost wishes they'd have rolled the dice and left him out, but realistically, I think Verstappen was probably always going to catch him.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, we saw Verstappen get to Leclerc, so 100%,
exactly. So
100%, he would have been caught and passed. It then would have made his fight against the likes of Piastri and Russell so much harder. Yes, he would have had time up the road from them, so maybe he would have never got into a fight with them. But ultimately, I think it probably plays out the same, just in a slightly different style, if that makes sense. I think that luckily for them, whether he pitted or not, he probably still comes home 4th. I don't think he manages to pull off the heroics of a podium, even if he stays out, because Max would have caught him and passed him quite comfortably, I think.
I think I lean towards that as well, to be honest.
But that, I mean, even still, you can't take anything away from his drive for that,
really,
regardless.
And then
very interesting curveball comment in the chat from Roxy. Do you think he's the potential of a future champ?
I think he's got the potential to be a future Ferrari driver. So no, he probably won't be champion based on recent form.
That's fair. I mean, interestingly, when you look back at Ollie's career, I don't think he's. Oh no, he won F4. I think he won his F4, one of his S4 seasons. But
he didn't have great runs in F3 or F2, did he?
No, like he was always there or thereabouts. He was, like with Prima and stuff, he was always towards the sharp end and what have you. But he's not actually been a champion. I mean, I could see him being like probably someone who's maybe like a Jensen Button of the future or something. Like just spend years getting really solid results for teams, and then if that one moment comes, he gets the opportunity to take it by both hands and get a title. So I could see him being around a long time if he maintains the consistency that he started showing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Ocon picks up 9th place as well, which actually jumps Haas to the 7 points behind Aston in the constructors now. And then RB are only 3 more points ahead in 6th place. So 6th place in the constructors is wide open.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting fight over the last few races.
Yeah, very much so. Quick word of Mercedes as well. My God, so much angry team radio. Like they end up 6th and 7th in the end. We had when Russell's on fresher tyres than Antonelli, with Piastri chasing them both down, and he asked to be let by. And there was about 6 laps of back and forth and arguing and faffing before they eventually let him by. And then it made no difference. Russell had kind of, his tyres were past the best and he couldn't go on from that.
It was so poorly managed from Mercedes. Like, as Russell came up to the back of Antonelli and caught him and was looking faster, there just wasn't quite enough differential in it for him to make the move on DRS. But ultimately, like, he's not going to fight, I guess, as hard against his teammate maybe as he would for a more legitimate position, let's say. And I think getting on the radio to him and like giving him messages like temps are hot, you need to cool things down, like essentially provoking him and poking him whilst he's literally like, I'm with George on that one. Like, what on earth do they expect him to do when he's literally sandwiched between 2 cars with no space? Like, like the sassy comments of, do you want me to just let this McLaren through then? Like, I understand where they came from, because it's like, no, we're not going to let you pass your teammate, but also you need to keep the car cool without letting the guy behind you through. It's like, guys, just, like, they definitely needed, the first time as he cruised up to him and was looking faster and it became an option, they probably just needed to instigate it a lot sooner and say, like, look, we're on different paces at the minute. We need to let George through and see if he can actually catch Ollie and make a move. If he can't, we will switch back later in the race and just get it done. Now, I think ultimately the way Mercedes probably look at it is, yes, but had we done that, Antonelli might not have been able to defend against Piastri, and ultimately we'd have been worse off. But I think he got overtaken by Piastri anyway, didn't he? So it doesn't.
Yeah, they both did.
They both did.
Piastri did him in the pits. The
was
rare
the
fast McLaren pit stop.
Yeah, it was the pit jump. But I mean, even still, I think even if they'd have swapped places and they'd stopped using Russell as a rear gunner, it would have still. I don't know. It smacked of like slightly poor management from Mercedes, and that they could have definitely done a better job with it.
I think in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have made a difference.
Well, I mean, in reality, it didn't make a difference because they finished behind Piastri anyway, both of them. Never caught Bearman, both of them, and had to switch the positions back anyway because Russell had made the deal of, if I can't catch Bearman and pass him, I will switch the places back before the end of the race. So ultimately, it literally made no difference.
Yeah.
They did it. But the problem would have been is if they had let him go sooner, maybe with better temperatures and better tyre health and so on, Russell would have found it a little bit easier to get up on the back of Bearman and then make the pass work. But I say that, but Bearman kept both him and Piastri behind him.
I say if Bearman can keep a McLaren behind, he's definitely keeping a Mercedes behind.
Yeah, like as soon as they both cruised up into DRS range of Bearman, he like turned on the defensive gear. Like that was a very solid defensive drive. And I think that's something that people have to probably take notice of, is the fact that he was getting, I mean, yes, I know DRS is and the power of the cars is a little bit muted here at Mexico and always has been.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at the car that he's in, there's something to be said for that. He's not like it's not like he's in a Ferrari. Well, I mean, I know it's a Ferrari engine, but it's not like he's in the Ferrari, and therefore it makes sense why he's been able to fight them. He's in what is traditionally a mid to backfield car. Like, you know, that's really solid defensive driving to keep two drivers like Russell and Piastri behind him.
Yeah, it's. I think it was noticeable that Toto wasn't there this weekend, to put it that way.
True. Yeah, don't think that Russell wanting to come through situation escalates the way it does. I don't think Toto lets the pit wall talk back to George the way they were, giving him the sass. I don't think that situation evolves the way it does.
He'd have nipped that in the bud very quickly.
Yeah. Could you imagine him just sat at home or wherever he is, just screaming, like, banging his fist on the desk as he does, throwing his Bose headphones against the wall.
Yeah. Should we do a drive of the day?
Ooh, I mean, I feel like this is easy. There was a runaway winner in the official vote, and I don't think it's going to be much different on this podcast.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, obviously Lando did an amazing job. We've mentioned that second stint from Max, but yeah, we've got to say Ollie, haven't we?
Yeah, Lando puts in the best drive of his career potentially, and we give it to Ollie Bearman instead.
we give it to a Haas coming fourth.
Yeah.
What about move of the day? I feel like there was quite a lot of overtakes, but most of them were just a pretty dull DRS pass into turn one.
I forgot to go back and look at more of these to get some suggestions.
Two that stood out to me were Piastri getting Russell towards the end was good. He had to like really dive it up the inside for that one. And then there was also Bortoletto passing Hadjar towards the end. It was for like 11th or 12th place or something like that. So it was of no significance, but it was a decent pass from him.
I'm going to be really annoying and say someone went round the outside of somebody else into turn one, and it was one of the better moves because they made it work round the outside.
That might have been the Bortoletto one.
I'm now going to rely on Discord to go, that was so-and-so. Because I genuinely can't remember who it was. But it was a really good move from someone round the outside in turn one, which is obviously...
I found it. It was Bortoletto on Hadjar, yeah.
Okay, so it's that one. There you go.
Yeah.
That's the one then. That was easy.
Right, he was one of the few that did the outside move, actually. So for that alone, we'll give it to him.
Yeah. And then last award.
Honestly, what the f*** are we doing here?
Got a few this week.
So many. There's so many to put in this week. I mean, what's the list we've got so far, Chris?
Right. We've got GP's radio talking to Max, but broadcasting all of his conversations, including some strategic chats that Red Bull definitely would not want to be getting broadcast over the radio. Yeah, that was really weird.
Are we one stopping or two stopping? I was like, why are they... At one point when he was saying what he was saying, it sounded like he was responding to Max and just trying to wind Max up. But then when you realised he was actually talking to somebody on the pit wall and was still connected to Max by mistake, it sort of made more sense. Because Max came on the radio and said something like, you know, what are we doing with the strategy? And then GP just went, what are we doing with the strategy? And I was like, why is he asking Max? And then I sort of realised when it all unfolded and he was clearly talking to someone on the pit wall, I was like, oh, I don't think that comment was meant for Max either.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting moment for sure.
Yeah. We've also got Marshall's been out on the track without a virtual safety car on like lap 2 or 3, and Lawson came around and found some people on the track, which was just inexcusable. The FIA have said they're going to investigate how that was able to happen. I've seen some people say maybe that goes some way to explaining the VSC towards the end of the race. They were maybe a little bit
cautious,
jumpy cautious, not meant the same mistake again. Maybe there's something to that, but
as far as I'm aware, from what I've seen so far, I know they're still investigating it, but it sounds like they did authorise for the marshals to go collect the debris without realising that Lawson had pitted to that new front wing. And then at the point that they realised he was in the pits, they retracted that and said, you need to leave the circuit because there's still a car there. But they were slow to, I guess, find out about that because they were in the middle of the circuit picking up debris and started like essentially running across the circuit when Lawson was going towards them, which was, a scary-ish, heart-in-mouth kind of moment when you do see it. But luckily, Lawson was like alert to it and able to just get around them, I guess.
He wasn't going too fast, luckily.
No. But I think definitely something they need to look at as to how it happened a little bit more.
One from the Discord over the weekend, which was just everything about Carlos Sainz's day. He had a shocker, didn't he? Absolute shocker, yeah.
The thing with the pit limiter was awful. And the worst thing is they kept making him pit. He's clearly got a problem with the pit limiter, and he's getting a penalty every time he comes in the pits. Stop adding pit stops to it, man. What are you doing?
It sounds like the contact he had, I think, with Lawson at the start, damaged a sensor or like a wheel sensor,
right, okay.
And that's what was causing the pit limiter to act weird. From what I read, but just. Terrible day.
Just an awful one.
We've already mentioned the fact that the stewards apparently just weren't watching half the time.
Yeah.
And then also McLaren asking Lando to pick a tyre for Oscar again. Why are we still doing this?
For the other side, how would you go if there was another stop? Would you go soft or medium? Why are they asking him that?
I think I'd go Inters, mate, if I was on the other side. It's ridiculous.
I was flabbergasted when I heard it. I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're at this again.
So frustrating.
Yeah, just crazy.
What should we give it to? Unless there's anything else you could think of.
I don't know, there probably were some. I had some random stuff during the weekend, but there's just so much more that happened during the race that just kind of drowned it all out. I don't know. It depends if you want to go with like the serious one or the more comedic ones. I mean, the Marshall thing is definitely like the most realistic. WTF is going on here. But then things like I don't know, like funny but it shouldn't be funny is the steward just not bothering watching and just ignoring stuff and pretending it's not happening and burying their head in the sand. Funny but painful is like Carlos Sainz's day, just everything being wrong with it. Funny for just what on earth are they doing is the whole McLaren asking Lando what tyres Oscar should have. The only thing I can think with that is like, what on earth have they said to Oscar that Oscar's then replied in a way that they think, oh, we best ask Lando then?
Yeah.
Like, have they asked Oscar and he's got a bit snippy with them and said, I don't know, just put me on whatever you think. So they've gone, okay, Lando, what do you think? Because we've got no idea here.
And then they go back to Oscar and say, Lando thinks you should put the mediums on.
We've had a roundtable discussion and Lando thinks, wow. Yeah,
I think maybe this week, because it is like so bad, we can do the serious one and say the Marshall on track, because that is like just properly what on earth are they doing there?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
I'm going to do a bit of prediction-y stuff.
Take us through.
So someone came very, very close to a perfect weekend this week. Lisa Hersing-Smith got Lando's double correct, got Liam Lawson first DNF correct, and got Gasly's finishing position correct. But unfortunately had 18 finishes, which was a little too high. But congratulations all the same, Lisa, because that is like an outright win this week. Nobody else got 4 out of 5 correct, so well done to you. In terms of the overall standings, it's still extremely close at the top. We've got Michael Labaldus on 26 points. We've got Lockman 4000 and Christopher Whitlock tied on 25 points in second place. So it is all very, very close there. I mean, if you haven't played before and you want to kind of see what it's all about, I've just randomly gone into talking about predictions, but you can head to backofthegrid.com and find out more about it. All the info is on the website. If you want to check your score from this weekend or see where you are in the standings, all that's on there. And if you're newer to the show and, again, wondering what's going on, tune in for a preview and we'll kind of discuss it in a bit more detail. But in short, we ask for some predictions, and if you manage to get all 5 right, you can win a prize. So, yeah, head to the website to find out more about that. Over in our F1 Fantasy League, we've got Liam Lawson, creatively written upside down. I'm not going to try and pronounce what it actually says, but it does definitely say Liam Lawson. They won this week with 309 points. And we have a new leader for the first time in a long time. It's almost like the real championship, to be fair. At some point, many months ago, Wyan Racing took the lead of the championship in the F1 Fantasy game and has looked untouchable since. However, we have a new leader this week of 44th gear with 4,522 points. So maybe our Fantasy F1 championship is going the same way as the real one. Who knows? The links for that, again, on the website. Head to backofthegrid.com and click the fantasy button, and you can click that. And then lastly, we've got GridRival, where Lebaldus, which I'm going to assume is actually Michael Lebaldus, who is also winning the Fantasy League. Could be a small world, but I'm going to assume it's one and the same. But that's this week's winner with 1,026 points, although that was extremely close this week. I think it was 1,026 points for first, 1,025 for second, and then 1,024 for third. So, yeah, extremely close there. But Sazo123 has retained their lead there, which is 19,217 points. So again, head to backofthegrid.com and you can see more about joining the leagues. I mean, don't know how much you'll get out of a leaderboard by joining the leagues at this point, but you might still be able to win a race at least and score good points for a race. So that wraps up predictions and Fantasy Corner. And I think that wraps up everything we've got for Mexico, doesn't it, Chris?
It does indeed.
So that is it from us. We will be back next week to start looking ahead to Brazil. So please do join us for that. If you'd like to get in touch with us in the meantime or send questions for Inbox, whatever it might be, you can find us on all the social media platforms by searching for Back of the Grid F1. And you can also head to the website I've mentioned before, backofthegrid.com, so that you can submit a traditional kind of contact us form on there. And you can also leave a comment on the video below if you are watching on YouTube, and leave a submission for Inbox or just a general comment about what's going on with the show there. If you are watching on YouTube, please do remember to do the whole like, share, subscribe stuff, and that will always help us out massively in that regard. We will be back in a week's time to start talking Brazil, but for now, it's goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.